into the offseason. Here are 4 or 5 of the best awards in college football other than the Heisman, and I got my email Sunday as I now am on the clock to vote by, I think, 5 o'clock on Monday of next week. The Jim Thorpe Award, brought to you by Paycom, includes Travius Hodges-Tomlinson of TCU and also locally of Midway High School, Witherspoon of Illinois, and Clark Phillips III, the cornerback from Utah. That's the Jim Thorpe finalist group. If you guys want to jump in at any time on that, I'll just keep going on if you don't say anything.
I mean, we covered Tomlinson in high school. We covered all his games, watched all his games. We know him. We saw him at Big 12 Media Days, dapped him up and hugged him and, told him that we were excited for him. Didn't know he was entering a year where he's going to be up for the Thorpe Award as a finalist, but very proud of him. For those who wonder, why is he not playing for Baylor? Because he's from Waco. Well, Matt Rule's the head coach back then. They weren't convinced about his size or the room that they had, and I don't know, whatever it was that they were debating, they weren't completely sold. I feel like we did the selling job, quite frankly, as Midway ran to a state title, and they eventually offered him, and he was going to sign with Baylor. There's a now infamous deleted tweet from signing day number 1 about 4 years ago where he was committing to Baylor, and then all of a sudden it was gone in less than 30 seconds, and I guess TCU came calling, and there was a whole deal there, and TCU, he's related to LaDainian Tomlinson, so he grew up a TCU fan, and that's where he went, and now look at him now, and it's pretty incredible to see that journey for a guy who was too small to play, at certain places.
And we'll be an All-American first team or second team, probably across the board, maybe even consensus, maybe even be a part of whatever the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, although Ford, among a couple of others, will be in that mix too.
I remember doing the player profile interview with him that last year and asking him, you want to go to TCU, have they called yet? And he said no. And I said, that's shocking to a lot of people. He said, yeah, including me. And he was... He wanted it. He said that TCU was the one place he wanted to go. It's the place he's always wanted to go. And I think somebody had to, tell Gary Patterson, hey, if you don't offer LaDainian Tomlinson's nephew, we're not going to have him, and he's a good player. And then finally said, maybe it just never – the light didn't go on until then.
And one more note about what Craig said on the tweet. It might have been a miscommunication or Travius was going to commit to Baylor, and then all of a sudden you kind of get the feeling that perhaps there either wasn't an offer or that was one of those that was there but not really because they were still looking for someone else.
No, I think it was you can commit, but you have to sign today. And he was not going to do that because he was still getting flirtations from TCU and was probably going to go visit there. And I don't think Baylor was going to wait on that and then end up with egg on their face. And so they said, well, whatever. And he ended up going to TCU. The rest is history. Yep. But, yeah, that's why.
He's going to join us today at 4:30 here on 365 Sports. TCU K-State coming up on Saturday at AT&T Stadium. Another Frog. The Davey O'Brien Award finalist. This is the list that includes Max Duggan, TCU, C.J. Stroud, Ohio State, and USC, Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I don't know how many awards Max Duggan's going to end up winning. You never know with some of these other Player of the Year awards, though. I feel pretty confident he's not winning the Heisman. But my whole thing last week, and I saw somebody was responding about the C.J. Stroud part of that. I'm sure that their reaction might be a little bit different post Michigan as well. It was not, I was in no way disrespecting Caleb Williams or C.J. Stroud. Not that there was confusion that I was, but my whole point with talking about Max Duggan was that he deserves a spot in New York. That was all I'm saying. I'm not saying he deserves to win it. I'm not saying that he deserves to have whatever, but just saying he deserved a spot in New York. So glad to see him up for, I know that's not the Heisman, but glad to see him up for that award.
All right, the Biletnikoff Award for the best receiver. Another Big 12 name is on the list, Marvin Harrison Jr., who's a freak for Ohio State. There's Jalen Hyatt at the bottom, who had an incredible year until he was hurt at Tennessee. And right there, smack in the middle, I'm not so sure if he didn't end up close to 100 catches this year, Xavier Hutchinson, the receiver for Iowa State. Despite their year, he had a huge year. There's a couple of moments where you hate it for him, the drop pass against Texas, and there was also a drop first down catch somewhere else along the way that was critical. Those are the 3 wide receivers.
Yeah, all great choices there.
I was surprised the kid from Purdue, Charlie Jones, didn't make that.
Yeah, but I would. That's a hard one to pick there between those 3.
Because then you have to take somebody off. If we have rules. You could. We so and so. Okay, who do you take off among the 3? You probably could, but to me, that would be really difficult. And Hyatt may have won that thing had he not been injured and finished the year with another couple of games. Although, again, Hutchinson and Harrison are both fantastic players too.
I feel like Xavier Hutchinson had if a tree falls in the wood, no one's around. Does anybody hear it? I feel like that's the year he had because I don't think anybody was paying close attention to Iowa State beyond a certain point because of just the record and the losses piling up on top of one another. So, not sure how many voters nationally out there were really locked in on Iowa State football. That would be my concern. I definitely don't feel like he's going to win it, but the fact he got honored by even being a finalist, that's cool. That's a cool thing, a little feather in your cap, and good for him. And, I would assume that Harrison wins that, but we'll see.
All right, one more. The Outland Trophy finalists, offensive and our defensive interior linemen. Cansey from Pittsburgh, who had a fantastic year, very disruptive. You wonder, of course, Georgia and their star defensive lineman who missed a lot of games. Yeah. Carter might have been a part of this, but he missed a lot of games. If you haven't seen Michigan, and if you didn't watch Ohio State, and you watch what Teamy does, he is fantastic. He's a transfer from Virginia that went to Michigan to solidify a position that they were a little bit concerned about. And then Skoronski's been a part of this list from day one, and the All-American list as well, the offensive lineman from Northwestern.
And probably the only thing good that happened at Northwestern this year after they left Ireland was Peter Skoronski. But, yeah, Michigan's offensive line as a whole is dominant, and it really starts there in the middle to center position.
One more thing. Lou Groza, the kicker. This is a very competitive list. Christopher Dunn, who kicked the field goal to beat North Carolina. He also has kicked others as well. Joshua Carty from Stanford, probably one of the few things Stanford feels good about this year in football. And then Jake Moody of Michigan, who had also a great run. So those are the ones, Dunn, Carty, and Moody for the place kicker, Lou Groza Award finalist this year. All right.